Yeah. What do we have?
Evening.
Okay, that's good. Good evening.
How are you?
Well, good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone.
Now, Princess, how you feeling?
In pain, but not complaining. Thanks for asking.
International Day of the Woman.
It is
Happy Women's Day.
to everyone.
I attempted to send something out to everyone through our Google group. Did you get anything?
Today,
Did you send it out?
Today?
Oh, I did
what
not
time?
check my group.
After tree?
Good evening, all. Good evening.
Good evening.
Ms. Granville, this is Sarah. I did not get an email from the Google group today.
Neither did I. What was the email?
Ms. Granville, I don't know if you're talking, but you're muted.
You didn't hear me?
No,
Sorry.
sorry.
Sorry about that. No, I was just saying that I had sent it out. I think I had sent it out. What is today? Today is Wednesday. I may have sent it out on Sunday. But the basically he talked about the fact that he had actually joined residents of the housing authority developments, and he announced 2 audits selected by NYCHA resident audit the NYCHA resident audit committee. So he's actually going to the source instead of listening to what other people say the problems are. He's actually going to the actual tenants themselves to see what they think about the problems.
And sorry, who is this? Ms. Granville, you're muted.
City Controller Brad Lander.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think you might have been muted when you explained that part.
Oh, sorry about that.
Maybe it would make sense to try again to send the email to the group.
Okay, I will do it. I will try that again because it was actually my first time using the Google group. So I'm hoping that I didn't push the wrong button somehow. Anyway, as I was trying to say before, good evening to everyone. And it's so ironic that this is International Women's Day. And so far, I only see women's names on the screen. I don't see any men so far.
Women get stuff done.
Yes, they do. And I personally think that if more women were running things, we probably wouldn't have had the number of wars that we've had. I think you have a different respect for life when you can actually give life. And sometimes I think the fact that men can't do that makes them a little, shall we say, reckless.
Amen.
Did anyone get a chance to go to the State of the District that Myrie had? I think it
No,
was 2 weeks ago on a Sunday at the Mega Evers College.
yeah, I wasn't able to make it. Did you go, Ms. Granville?
That I had because from his newsletter that he sent out, it was quite, well attended, and he actually had a screen set up behind him with his logo and everything for the office. And a lot of the people who came took pictures with him. So I think a lot of people enjoyed that. If they didn't enjoy it, they certainly looked like they did. Did you get to attend I think last week I had cut our meeting short, not last week, well, last month. I cut the meeting short because the Transportation EST was having a meeting the same night, and people wanted to make sure that they tuned in to hear what was being said. So I just wanted to know how many of you had had a chance to actually hear parts of the meeting, of that meeting.
Yeah.
Hello, Miss Glenville. How are you?
I'm fine. Who am I speaking to?
Miss Langley.
Hi, Miss Langley. How are you?
I am a part of the EST meeting. It went
Mm-hmm.
well. We spoke on a few things such as the bus, he spoke on that, and a few things. He spoke on the compass with what sits on the different corners. And a lot of things that we are going to put in, he gonna put it into writing that we're going to speak about and try to take care of coming in the future.
Okay. And I understand that the seniors have come out and been very, very visible and very vocal, and I think that's a good thing.
Yes, yes, yes.
Because I don't think anybody will be as affected by those changes as you all will.
Right, you're 100% right.
So I'm happy to see that you all are getting involved, and hopefully it might, if our young people pay attention, it might actually inspire some of them to be a little more active.
Yes, I can agree to that.
So I want to congratulate you, Miss Langley, because I understand that the seniors were the ones who managed to make sure the petitions were drawn up and circulated and what have you. So that's a good thing.
Yes, yes. I went to the head office and talked with Miss Julia there, and she helped a lot. She did up the petitions and everything. So we was able to talk on, and we had all the petitions there, which we gave to Gail. So I hope Gail, she probably will, you know, keep it going.
And is the comment period finished for the proposed changes, or can people still submit something if they
I
need to?
I feel we can. I don't know. The ones I had, I passed them over to Gail, but I still have the petition, so anybody who wants to sign up can.
Okay.
I think we have another a meeting, but I don't remember exactly when it's going to be. I don't know whether I missed it because I went away. I went to North Carolina for a week, so I don't know whether I missed it or not. So I will find out, I guess, tomorrow at the big meeting what is actually going on.
Yeah, I think it would be good because I myself have not signed and I had intended to. So if anyone has them tomorrow at our meeting, I think it would be good because it would be a good opportunity for some people who haven't signed to sign.
Yes,
So I
okay.
hope so.
Yes, good idea.
Sarah, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I don't know if this would be the right time for it, but I was gonna bring up a few things that are coming, like dates that are coming up, events that are coming up that might be of interest to people. Um, uh, so I'm sure most of us in this meeting know this, but the Atlantic Avenue mixed use plan process is having its next day where they discuss housing and land use, or not land housing, no, housing and zoning. Yeah, housing and zoning. And that's going to be um, this coming Sunday at 2 p.m. I think the first hour is going to be some sort of walking tour. And then from 3 to 5 is the workshop portion of the event. and that's going to be at PS9, the same place where the previous round of workshops was held. So if people, have opinions about, the potential zoning, about the housing component, they should turn out for that workshop slash meeting. So there's that. And then a second thing is that on Tuesday, March 14th, a lot of tenants who were part of the statewide Housing Justice for All coalition are going to be going to Albany, including a bunch of members of the Crown Heights Tenant Union, um, in order to demand, you know, tenants' rights be part of the budget process for this year's Albany legislative session. And I know, I think a good cause is, a bill that has a better chance to pass this year than it has since 2019. And also the Housing Access Voucher Program, HAVP, is also potentially going to pass soon. It's part of the budget because it would be creating a new state level voucher program where if people are potentially going to become homeless because they've lost work, their income has gone down, it's a different kind of voucher that they can apply for, that is a lot less restrictive, uh, than the FEPS voucher and Section 8. There are people who've been waiting to get a Section 8 voucher for years and years. There's this wait list. HAVP would be another avenue that people can go to. So it's basically like state level Section 8, but without waiting for the federal government list to open back up. So yeah, those are some things that should be of interest to Community Board 8 members.
Okay, now the one that you talked about, the Atlantic Avenue mixed use, that's this coming Sunday. What is Sunday, the 10th or the 9th? The 10th, right?
12th.
The 12th. Okay, see, I'm really behind. March 12th. And the walking tour will start around what time?
2, but I don't know where people are supposed to be meeting for the walking tour. I'm guessing maybe they just meet at PS9 and then people walk around from there. Maybe I don't know if maybe Mimi has that info on hand, but yeah, if the walking tour part isn't feasible for somebody, then they could just come to the workshop part, and that's at PS9.
Okay,
Great.
so at this point, do you know approximately what time the workshop might start? I know it will be after the tour. So the tour
Right.
would be what, an hour or 2 hours?
1 hour, and then at 3 p.m. the workshop is supposed to start.
Okay,
At least that's what I saw on the flyer.
okay. Now, at this point, is there a lot of participation from Community Board 8?
Yeah, I think so. Uh, I definitely saw a lot of the frequent flyers, board members um, and also like public members of various committees who were there. Um, there were also a fair number of people from outside of the district, who are involved with this lobbying group called Open New York. They are always advocating for more density. Um, that's kind of their mission statement. So they came from other places to chime in at this. I think there were maybe Mimi could verify this, but I don't know if there were maybe like 15 of those people.
Yeah, 15 to 20.
So are you guys saying to me that these folks think that we're supposed to put more housing than we have already? You said density?
Yeah, so their mission statement is really to push like basically to push the city to say yes to every rezoning that that is a rezoning that would create more housing. Because I I have thoughts about this group and their philosophy, but their general argument is they think you build more, prices like rents will go down.
Oh, okay. Princess, I see your hand.
Ms. Lazar, I know you talked about you're part of Crown Heights Rental Tenant Association. My question is, what kind of education are being given to tenants about helping themselves that they would not frequently find themselves in situations where either they have to get evicted or because we are saying, I'm hearing all these programs government should get gifted. And if there's a lot of people in Section 8 and they're not giving back, you're not paying taxes, there's all these programs I'm hearing, and a lot of these programs, some people are working, some are not. After a while, where this money is going to keep coming from to pay all these programs? Because there only so much money the mint, the federal government can print. We already is on the ceiling when it comes to debt in our country. And we're talking about more. I don't have a problem of assistance, but what is being put in place to help these people to educate themselves that, okay, go back to school, get education, do something else besides going after the government and keep asking, oh, put more program for parents, put more program for tenants, put more program for tenants, help tenants pay their rent, help tenants pay their rent. There are tenants who are paying their rents without any help by doing certain things. One, going back to school, get some form of education that can bring up their paychecks. And one of the things is that part of a component that you are working with these tenants on, or just like let's advocate for the government to keep giving more and more, because eventually all this giving more and more gonna fall back on the taxpayers, including all of us who's on this line are paying taxes. So when we talk about tenants' right, we need to go back and see how it eventually going to affect us, taxpayers.
So, yeah, thanks for the question. So, Credit Senate Union actually hasn't been very involved in the fight about HAVP. I mean, I think it's something that makes sense, and just in terms of like where they are, where the Housing Justice for All Coalition is hoping for the money to come from, there a lot of the groups that are involved in that fight are part of the Tax the Rich coalition. Um, and the idea would be raising taxes on the billionaires because New York has, I think, at the
The
last count,
second, we
has
rank
has
second.
more billionaires than any other
No,
state. And
no, not billionaires, millionaires. We rank second in all 50 states when it comes to millionaire. New York ranked number 2. Yeah, I know
okay,
that. Yeah, we rank number 2. But a lot of these people are getting ready to leave New York. Just like one time when they were saying tax the rich, a lot of the rich went to China, they went to India. As you know, if you buy a lot of things from Amazon, the people that you're speaking to, they're not on this continent. So one of the things I really want us, I don't have a problem with helping tenants, but one of the things when I hear, let's go to elected official and let's advocate, let's put a component in that advocate to tenants. You also need to help yourself and I'm going to go Christian. God help those who help themselves. Meaning, you want help, you have to do something. You have to bring something to the table. I know what it is to deal with Section 8. I've dealt with Section 8 tenants. So this is not a person who speaking off the head. This is a person that most of my tenants I've dealt with in my properties are Section 8 tenants. And do I have anything good to say about them? No. Right now, I have a tenant owe me over $80-something thousand who was once a Section 8 tenant. So when I hear all these things advocate for tenants, they are landlords who are doing the right thing, but are still getting the short end of the stick. So it just makes me livid. That's all I'm hearing. Advocate for tenants, advocate for tenants. Landlords work hard to accomplish and own what they own. And it seems like nobody put that into consideration. Don't get me wrong. My sons are tenants. But nobody put it into consideration the sacrifices that a lot of landlords, including myself, had made to accomplish what I've accomplished. And it seems like all of that is being tossed aside, and it's all about the tenants. Good, bad, or indifference. But eventually, we're going to feel it. Because the federal money, like they say, it's coming back to us. And most of the time, if you know the tax problem, is the middle class and the poor are paying the high end. If you listen to Buffett said his secretary is paying more taxes than he's paying.
Well, right. That's the
Right.
reason why people are talking about taxing the rich, because the rich are not paying taxes at the same level as the middle class. And I mean, and also there's an article from Forbes, I can find it. I mean, um, they've done studies, and actually the super rich don't actually leave states like New York and California when they raise taxes on them. Like they always threaten that they're going to, but they don't actually. It's more
They
likely.
don't leave the state, but they take the business out.
Okay, but one thing, I'm sorry to interrupt you both. I just want to get in here. A couple of things that I heard in this conversation, and then I want to just make sure that we're clear on. Um, Ms. Francis, I think that what you're doing is you're stereotyping a certain type of tenant when you talk about Section 8 tenants. This voucher program is also for working class people. There are a bunch of working class people who still cannot afford rent. We hear this at not only in this committee here, but we also hear it community wide, and we also even hear it at our own general meetings. And that's the fact of a one
Mimi, please,
bedroom.
no, stop. Please don't tell me what I'm doing. Please, you just spoke for me. And please
I
don't
didn't
do that.
speak for you. No,
You
I
did
spoke on
by
what I
saying
heard you
what
say.
you think
You
I said.
stereotyped Section 8 tenants. You
I
just did
have,
that.
no.
If you
Have
don't
you
think
ever
you did
owned a
it,
property?
that's
No.
okay.
Can I say
But you
something?
did.
Have you ever dealt with Section 8? Do you own a property? Have you ever dealt with Section 8? So
Actually, I
please,
have dealt with Section 8
have
tenants.
you
I
owned
actually
have
have.
you have dealt with Section 8 as a landlord?
As a property manager,
No,
I
as a
have.
landlord. I'm talking as an owner, not managing property. There's a difference between the two.
Okay,
So no,
but my
so please,
point. So
no.
let me get back
Mimi,
into my
please do
point.
me a
Because you
favor,
were,
Miss
no,
Michelle.
wait, Ms. Ben James, you had a chance to speak. Nobody interrupted you. Nobody interrupted you. You
No,
said
but
what you
you
wanted to
speak. No,
say.
I'm just
You
trying to say, please do not speak for me. Because you
I'm not
just
speaking
said,
for you. I'm telling you what I heard you say.
no,
That's
you
what I'm
should have
doing. I'm
asked
telling you
me. No,
exactly what I
you
heard
should
you
have
say.
asked me before
You
you
said
made
you
that
have
assumption.
nothing good to say about Section 8
Because
tenants.
I've
That's
dealt
what
with,
you said.
I was speaking about my tenants. No, I'm speaking about my tenants that I've dealt with. So you can't tell me how I should feel about my tenants that I've dealt with.
No, I didn't tell you how you should feel.
So
What I've
that's what
asked
I'm
you not
speaking
to do
about.
is to
No, that's
stereotype
no.
Ladies, we need
all
to be
tenants.
respectful of each other's opinion.
Yes,
Please, we can disagree and be
thank
please.
you.
Let's be respectful of
I
each
am
and
doing
everyone's
that.
opinion. I'm sorry, Ms. Granville, for
Yeah,
jumping
but
in.
I
No,
actually
please jump in. I'm okay with that.
no, but
Totally.
I am saying please because by you saying that, you are putting me in a box. Who knows I advocate for tenants. So please, I was speaking about the tenants I have dealt with as a landlord. I am not making an ambiguous statement. I did not say all Section 8. I did not
Okay.
make and if you feel that I made an ambiguous statement, I apologize because guess what? I started
Okay,
out by
thank you.
saying my children are tenants. That's how I start my conversation by saying my son. I have 3 sons and they're all tenants.
Thank
have
you for that then,
thoughts for
because I
tenants.
did, I might have misheard you, but I did hear you make broad statements about tenants. But anyways, that wasn't even my point, Ms. Princess. Honestly, that wasn't even my point. My point of what I wanted, the point that I wanted to make to you and the rest of this committee is that this HVAP bill, it's not just for like unworking people who aren't working. It's actually like for our middle class, which is still facing housing insecurity. Do you know that like tenants are paying 50% of their income is going towards rent in New York? And that's working class folks. That's not folk that are receiving benefits or on any type of HRA or Section 8, etc. That is just working class because as we know, most working class people cannot afford a one bedroom for $3,000. We've talked about this here. You know, I think that we all agree on that. We've talked about this here. This bill is actually to try to fill that gap so that someone is only paying 33% of their income, not a half or more. I don't have the numbers in front of me, unfortunately, but I mean, it's like, I think 60%. Sarah, maybe you can help me with that number, but it's like 60% of tenants are paying over 50% of their income into rent alone, just into keeping a roof over their head. So we know that with families, especially where there's a single mother, possibly, or a single parent, I should say, with children, that means that those children are missing out on things, on the tools that they're going to need, like a computer in the home, that they're going to need to succeed and to keep up to pace with children who come from a more affluent background when their parents are just trying to basically make rent. That's what this bill is about. So when we talk about taxing and where this money comes from, yes, it is going to have to come from our taxpayers. But who do I blame for that? I blame these wealthy developers who have jacked up these rental prices and the rental, like the rents for in our community alone, like in our CB8 alone. You can't find a one bedroom for under $2,000. I don't know of any one bedrooms under $2,000. And I'm talking about a one bedroom where a mother and two kids are living. So that means the mother is in the living room and the two children are in a bunk bed in the one bedroom. That's like the living reality. And 50% of her paycheck is still going to her landlord. That has to change. That is not a way for people to live. And that doesn't mean that people aren't working hard. It doesn't mean that people are being lazy. It doesn't mean any of those things. It just means that, to quote the gentleman, the rent is too damn high, as they like to say. And I'll leave it at that. Thanks for giving me the space to speak.
Princess, your hand is still up.
I think you're still muted.
I was asking Princess if her hand is still up. I don't know if she actually heard me or not, but I thought I saw her hand was up.
Yeah,
Ms.
yeah,
Langley, did
that's
you
why I was
have
saying
something to say? Huh?
no, I was that's why I was saying I think her thing is still muted.
Oh,
And
okay.
Mr. James might
Ms.
still be
Langley, did
muted.
I see your hand?
Yes, it's up, but I'm gonna have to move on because I have another meeting at 7. But I do want to
Yeah.
say this. I can understand that a lot of people can't not afford their rent, but people like myself with a small house and small landlord, as a small house with a landlord and a person that would not pay me my rent, then I lose my house. And that's something I cannot understand. Even though I dealt with Section 8 and I feel bad, but I would not rent to a Section 8 person again. Because I went through lots and lots and lots of trouble with Section 8 tenants, and I tried with them on more than one occasion. But I can understand they cannot afford. I can understand, but we as small landlords really, really suffer real bad or lose our homes because we have tenants that won't pay. And some of them can because they drive cars and they wear nice clothes.
So, yeah, I mean, just to sort of reiterate part of what Mimi was saying. So HAVP was like the design of it is, yeah, I mean, it could be applied, it could be given to someone who is like in shelter. Also, some people who are in shelter are working. But like imagine you have a tenant and uh, something happens where their job says, we're going to cut you from 40 hours a week down to 30 hours a week, and then their income goes down. um, if if there were a voucher program that could fill in the gap during that time where you know like the ERAP program was something that was thrown together really quickly, and yes, it took a long time for all of the papers to get processed, etc. But like in the end, the money did get to the landlords, um, when the tenants and landlords filled it out together. And so if there were a reliable New York State voucher program that could fill in the gap when there's a sudden, decrease in the tenant's income, um, that would keep the landlord's um, you know income from their building stable. And if the tenant's income goes up, the voucher could taper off, but it could also stay on. So the whole idea is to keep things stable, right? So that the landlord doesn't feel the need to go into housing court to evict people. Um, yeah, I mean that's the thinking behind it. Again, I didn't write the bill, so um, yeah.
Even from what I've heard so far, it would seem to me that it might be wise for our elected officials to have some sort of a tracking whereby they see, are these programs really helping, and over time what is going on with the tenants. I mean, are they continuing to pay as much as they can, or are they falling off, or will it be a case where the next pandemic will be used as an excuse not to pay? So at this point in time, unless people are paying attention and keeping track, we really won't know.
Oh, one other thing that I wanted to know. Okay, so there's that idea of, maybe everybody here has heard of it, but there's that idea of the benefits cliff. Like, I remember when people were talking about welfare back in the 90s or whatever, they would say, oh, people aren't going to work because they will lose their welfare. And that is something that people might be nervous about with Section 8, because with Section 8, if your income goes above a certain level, all of a sudden the Section 8 disappears. And so people might, people might hesitate to take on that new job opportunity, et cetera, because they're afraid of losing the Section 8. With HAVP, it's the kind of thing where it could fluctuate. And, if your rent, like if your income goes up beyond a point where HAVP is no longer necessary, but then dips down again, it's like you don't have the benefits cliff like you would with Section 8, where like if you lose it because your income goes up, then it just goes away forever. Um, the idea is for this program to be designed better, but again, I didn't write the bill.
I'm 100% behind the bill. And I do see that, like, even when we look at ERAP, and how many people it's helped, that I know that, I've filled out applications for, and how many people it's helped. And that includes the landlords, because the landlords actually got paid, you know, which is, it helped both sides. It wasn't just that it helped tenants stay in their homes. That's one side of it. But also landlords who were being squeezed and were facing, like, especially the small ones, like you, Ms. Langley, and you, Ms. Ben James, like, those programs were really like ERAP was really, really helpful because you were able to get that money back for what, at least 12 months of rent. You were able to be reimbursed for that. And that's basically what this voucher is sort of like. It's going to make sure that you get that income that you're relying on. You know, I did have a judge say to me, well, not say to me, excuse me, he said, I heard him say it to a small landlord. It was an interesting concept that he said, and something that I hadn't thought of before. You know, he said, as a small landlord, you have to also remember that this is a business that you're getting into. And with every business, there are risks and there are advantages. There are times where you make income and there are times where you lose income, depending on the season and depending on what's going on. And that's what happens with every business. And as landlords, we still have to look at it and say that this is a business. It's unfortunate. I don't think it's great that you're not getting your rent that you're relying on, but at the end of the day, it's also a calculated risk that you make when you decide to become a landlord. Just like a tenant makes that risk when they decide to become a tenant and they're paying 50% of their income out to a landlord and they have no savings. So if any kind of emergency hits them, they're not going to pay that landlord and therefore they're going to be homeless. It's a risk on both sides, I guess. And I'm just saying that it's something that we all have to keep in mind that there are pluses and minuses and that there is risk and investments on both sides. And hopefully we can get a bill to minimize that risk on both sides. And that's why I fully support it.
Atkinson, do you have any comments?
Sorry, I came in late. I had to work late. I don't know what bill you're talking about because I did come in late, but does it cover people that live in housing as well? Because something about ERAP, housing people did not get ERAP. They made a decision at the last minute, even though if they applied, they decided that none of them were going to get it. And they gave it to everyone else. So people that lived in any type of housing HUD did not receive that funding. And that's sad. So I don't know what kind of bill this is that's supposed to help, but does it help everybody?
That is an excellent question. We're the bill we're talking about is HAVP. It's the Housing Access Voucher Program. It's a state level bill that is being considered for the Albany budget right now. And there may be a decision as early as early June, sorry, early April. Um, and it's like because it's sort of the idea is to be like an improved version of Section 8, but at the state level. And because it's based on like it's still got that 30% of your income design that both Section 8 and Section 9 have. And it's not something that covers like rent arrears the way that a one-shot deal would cover rent arrears. Um, and I guess I'd have to ask people who know more about it whether because like with NYCHA and Section 9, and Ms. Atkinson, you definitely know more about this. Um, you have the recertification. So if you find like if you lose your job or your hours get cut at work, you can do the interim recertification where um they adjust the rent that they're asking of you. And so like in that situation, and there's that like 2 month wait time before the new adjusted rent kicks in, and it's retroactive for 2 months. But let's say you lost your job and then didn't ask to change your to have your rent adjusted for 3 months. What would happen with the arrears that you might accrue during that 1 month? I don't know if HAVP could be brought in to help with that. Yeah, it's something I would definitely be interested in asking somebody who knows more about that. But I think, yeah, most likely HAVP would be going to people in most likely in private housing and um, and people who are trying to get into private housing from shelter.
Be administrating the program.
I think it would be DHCR, or it could be because I feel I think DHCR, the first pandemic rent relief thing that they did, which was just very tiny, it was just like covering the difference in rent burden. DHCR was in charge of administrating that, and they bungled it so thoroughly, which is why when ERAP came out, they had OTDA. Um, I can't remember what OTDA
Was it
stands for.
temporary disability or something like that?
I would have to Google it. I can't remember, but OTDA, OTDA,
Mm.
they ended up administering ERAP, and so I'm wondering if OTDA would end up administering HAVP, or if DHCR would. I mean, DHCR is already, they don't have enough people to process all of the stuff that they normally are supposed to do. Like, you know, it could take 2 years for an overcharge complaint to get processed. Um, so it's hard to imagine DHCR taking on a new big task like that. I don't know. I feel like I'd have to ask other people.
Amy, I see your hand up.
Oh, that was from before. I'm sorry. I should have lowered it. Apologies. There we go. There.
Ms. Robinson, you've been very quiet, but thank you for trying to keep the peace, or shall we say broker the peace. Did you have any comment to make?
No, just taking all the information in. But I was actually just about to let you know I need to jump off. I have to attend another meeting. But it was very informative. It was good to know about voucher program, which I was not aware of. So it was very informative. Thank you, ladies, and have a good night.
Thanks,
Good
Miss
night.
Robinson.
Okay.
Um, oh, I mean, one other totally random thing. I I started working at Housing Court Answers just a couple weeks.
Congratulations.
Yay. And so I just was mentioning it in case if any of the community members ever have a thing that they want to run by somebody. I'm learning a lot, and feel free to hit me up.
It's called Housing Court Answers.
Yeah, Housing Court Answers. And I guess the name, it seems kind of self-explanatory, but it's a nonprofit, and yeah, thanks. It's a nonprofit, and but it's funded by the city. It was started in 1981 just because housing court was still kind of new at that point, and it was very confusing to tenants and homeowners alike. And um, yeah, there's a hotline where people can call and ask questions about what does it mean if I got a 14-day notice? What does it mean if, you know, if I found this notice taped up to my wall, to my door, um, or, oh my gosh, my roommate is trying to kill me. How do I, how do I, push them out?
And
Or
they answer questions from landlords too, correct?
yes,
Like for a small landlord, how do I start a holdover case against my tenant? for not renewing, because I don't want to renew a lease. There's other, yeah, there's resources for landlords there also, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. Do they give you a training period when you first start?
Yeah, yeah. There's a significant training period. I'm just studying a lot of different topics, but today I got to go to Brooklyn Housing Court and help people fill out forms.
Curiosity, how long is the training period?
Um, I think it kind of differs depending because I've had familiarity with housing court before starting to work there. It might be a little bit shorter, but uh, might be 3 or 4 months.
That's interesting because I hadn't heard about that particular program.
Yeah, it's really helpful. So if anybody in the community, anybody that finds themselves needing to do something through housing court, um, they can call up Housing Court Answers. The hotline operates from 9 to 5. Um, and they also have tables in the different housing courts in the different boroughs. And also, on the topic of, rent arrears, things like that, um, we're also able to answer questions about that. Like if somebody's behind on their rent and they want to know where can I try to get help with you know paying the arrears, we're able to connect them.
That's interesting because as you were talking, I was remembering the town halls that Al Van had set up some years ago, whereby the homeowners could come in and make arrangements with the different agencies of the city that they owe money to in an effort to work out payment plans and not lose their property. So that's interesting. Oh, well, before I forget, I think at the last meeting, it wasn't the meeting last month, it was the meeting before, I had talked very nicely about Crown Heights North and the meetings. Did anybody ever get a chance to go and check the meetings out?
Yeah, they had the presentation of the lawyer with the doing the wills and trusts. That was the last meeting they had last month.
Happy that you were there because I think sometimes we have organizations within the community that are doing very good work and provide good speakers with good information, but
Yeah, that was
people
some
don't go
very
and
good
check them out.
information.
Yes.
Get your health proxy, the difference between the irrevocable trust and the living trust. Yeah. It's very interesting.
Reason why I had to mention Crown Heights North Association is because I don't think a lot of people realize it, but if they had not done the work that they did, we would not have 3 historic districts. Actually, we have 4, but we actually have 3 within Community Board 8. And we wouldn't have them if they had not done the work some years ago that they put in. Because Landmarks Preservation is the smallest city agency of all of them. And if you have to wait for those folks to take your pictures and put your papers in to decide on your historic designation, you might be waiting a long time.
The row houses
So,
are gone now.
what did you say?
The row houses, They're buying the houses and adding 2 floors to them and 3 floors and making condos. So they're just changing the whole makeup of the blocks.
I remember correctly when they first started the designation process, Dean Street was done first because it was deemed to be the most endangered part of the district. They were afraid that if they didn't designate it, people would just buy 1 and 2 and 3 houses and just knock them down and build something larger in its place. So I can definitely understand where you're coming from. And there was talk of trying to extend it east, and I'm not sure if it ever got the traction that it should have gotten, because what people don't realize is that the board itself cannot recommend that an area be made historic. City planning wants to know and see that the residents of that particular area want to be historically designated. So if you don't see a certain amount of traction, a certain amount of interest, it may not get done. Other than that, you all have been unusually quiet. Is there anything else that is related to housing that you would like to discuss? Well, ladies, you're very, very quiet. So let me ask you a question. Should we adjourn at this point in time?
If people don't have other issues to bring up, but hopefully people will turn out to the Atlantic Avenue uh, housing workshop this Sunday.
I think it's really important. If anyone can come out, it would be really great. Um, as Sarah said, we've got these other people who are just like pushing density, 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 and they don't seem to care at what cost, and they don't seem to care about um, keeping any type of cultural norms in the neighborhood or anything like that. And I think as we discovered, I think Sarah, what was the ethnic makeup? It's like now, I think 10 years ago, it used to be 80% Black, and now we're at like 40% Black in the neighborhood now, in the district now, 60% other, i.e., Caucasian, other ethnicities, and if they continue to push their agenda forward and they get their agenda, that's exactly, those numbers are going to continue to shrink. They're going to continue to push us out. They're going to continue to work hard at pushing us out. And sure, no one comes out and says it. No one comes out and says that that's what we're doing. But if you listen carefully to all of the things that they're saying, they're all, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, they are all very anti-Black ideologies, anti-Black statements. It's all about building luxury buildings and buildings that um, tend to the needs of the non-Black communities in this district. And that's what these new developments are pushing for. So there's not going to be any room. There isn't any room. There isn't going to be any room for any of us to raise families, for any of your kids, grandchildren to raise families in our district if they continually keep getting what the way that they want and we don't stand up and say something and we don't stand up and fight. It's really important that we show up and we let them know we built this, we are here for this, and you're not taking it away from us.
And where is this event at?
It's going to be at PS9, which is in Prospect Heights. Kind of, I don't know. I'm a little annoyed that they made it so far west, but well, whatever.
That's Underhill. It is at PS9 though, Sarah.
That was on the last
One
flyer
sec.
that somebody forwarded to me.
Right. Let me just double check that only because they had a to be decided date, location. And then this is the other thing, y'all. They did it on a Sunday, right? So then they started this on a Sunday, 2 to 5 p.m. Historically, what is a Sunday for Black folk?
Church.
Thank you. What else do we do on a Sunday? We spend that with our families. One of the only days of the week that we usually take to really spend time with our family. And then they're
Sunday
going to
dinner.
plan this. Thank you. Exactly. But then yet, what time did they put this for? 2 to 5 p.m. on a Sunday. And this is what I'm talking about when I talk about subtle, but to me, very evident anti-Black decisions and choices. They're telling us right there, we don't want you to come out. You're not really invited. Because there's nobody in New York City or in America, actually, who hasn't at least seen or heard the movie Soul Food and knows what a Sunday means to us. I don't believe that is something that just escaped somebody's purview. There are too many people working on projects like this for it to just be something that fell through the cracks. Too many people. So when they do something as deliberate as that, that shows me at least the way that I take it, and I'm only speaking for myself, but the way that I take it is that you're saying to our community that your voice really doesn't matter, and we don't really care if you show up, and we're really not inviting you. You know, I don't see it in my notes here. I'm just looking, double checking in my notes. I don't see an updated.
Um, so Mimi, I just double
Mhm.
checked. Somebody sent the a screenshot of the website to me,
Okay,
and it is confirmed that it is
at
PS9.
PS9.
And I put the
Okay,
info in the chat as well, just so
thank you.
people have it.
Yeah, if you can pass this through to anyone else that might be interested or can come out, this would be great because, as I see it, like they're counting on us not showing up. They're counting on us not coming out. And when we stand there and we actually speak up and we actually say what's on our mind, they don't really have much of a comeback. As Sarah noted at our last meeting, we had two bros from this group Open New York, and when I hit them with stats and facts, they got flustered and frustrated. So frustrated that they ended up leaving. And that was simply because they couldn't counter what I was saying with real facts. And they're going to continually press their agenda forward and give these kind of false facts, or at least facts and stats that really don't tell the whole story, but sound really good if you don't listen carefully. And they're going to keep on pressing that type of agenda forward, and people are going to keep on saying yes, yes, yes. And we're going to be the ones who are left out in the cold by the end of this. For our next meeting, I will be presenting, I hope to present some new things that I learned about ways that they are now harassing homeowners so that they can actually leave and have to give up their properties. And they are targeting this at Black homeowners, these developers. I didn't want to get into it tonight just simply because I don't have all of the stats that I wanted to present to y'all, but I will be doing it for our next meeting. So I just really, really believe that this is somewhere that we have to really show up in force, and we have to really speak loudly, and we have to be heard.
Mimi, I thank you for letting us know. about the presentation that you intend to give. And Sarah, thank you for giving us the finer points of what will happen on Sunday. And I am going to try to rearrange my schedule so that I'm there, because it's been a while since I took any type of a walking tour, and the last one I took was actually for the project that was supposed to involve the area between Franklin and Bedford, I think it was. The M Crown area. That's the last walking tour I've taken. And I think it's very interesting when you actually get out and you walk and you see your community as it is. So I hope that a lot of people will come out. From what I've heard you all say, you think it's very important that the CB8 residents and the people who are interested, not just the board members, but residents also, come out in such large numbers that they outnumber the folks who just happen
Hmm.
to come in from someplace else.
Thank you. Exactly. Because that's what's happening. They're busing folks from someplace else to come in and dictate what our community needs, which
Yeah,
in their
and
point of view is them,
they
basically.
say cute things like rich people need housing too, and
Yeah.
yeah, and uh,
Yeah,
they'll call people who feel like they're being pushed out. They'll call those people xenophobic, um,
yes.
as if it's somehow anti like it. I don't know. It's perverse. But
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the thing, like when they bring up that, oh, two people, what was it, making 150,000? They thought that that was affordable. Like in terms of like the affordable housing, a family of two making $150,000. That's affordable housing. So if that was a requirement, that's what they would support. So that would probably mean that each person in that household would make about 75 grand. So when challenged and we're saying, well, wait a second, how does that work when it says that the average Black Brooklyn family makes between 50 and 70,000? Where are the apartments for us? Crickets. Crickets. Oh, well, I'm sure that they can get on a program or something, or they start like like just paving that over. They don't want to hear that. But 150 grand for two people, totally affordable. And that should be fine for affordable housing. And we as a community should accept and support that. And I always tell people, I have somewhere to live. I'm good. Amen. Praise the Lord. And most of us here on this call or on this meeting have somewhere to live and we're good. But it's not about us. It's not about us. It's about our kids, our grandkids, and even and especially our seniors. Where are the seniors going to go? I had a lady in the office last week. She was living in her brownstone as a renter for 40 years. Her and her mother for 40 years. She said she's never been late on the rent. She's been great. Unfortunately, the owner passed away. The step wife or whatever and the daughter have been fighting over the property. The property is now in foreclosure, etc. She has no idea where she's going to go because she cannot find a one or two bedroom for $1,500. She cannot. And that's where I was getting that whole $3,000 um, number for, because that's what she was seeing. She was seeing a lot of one or two bedrooms between 25 and 3,000. She has no idea where she's going to go. And it's heartbreaking for me to look at grown folk and see them sitting across from me crying, legitimately crying in despair because they really, truly do not have an option or a place to go. And that's what we owe it to our community to speak out and to be there for these people. We owe it to them. Anyway, sorry, I'm off my soapbox, y'all.
I'm here for it.
Um, Thank you for letting me know the mentalities that I will encounter when I come out on Sunday and the attitudes that I will encounter. And I just want you to know that when I was sharing housing before we split the committees up, during the time of Atlantic Yards, when they first started talking about Atlantic Yards, I would have people coming to my meeting every month in tears because they would tell me they knew they had bought the last cheap house in Brooklyn and they knew they were going to lose it. And unfortunately, when certain entities become involved in development, all of the rules that apply to other people with land use and zoning sometimes go out the window. And I'm saying this to say that when ESDC gets involved, a lot of times once it becomes a case of eminent domain, quote unquote, the folks lose their homes and it's tragic.
Yep.
And to this day, we do not know what those people would pay for their homes because they had to sign gag orders when they sold the homes that they had.
Yep. I've been hearing more and more about that, Ms. Granville. I wasn't here for that, but I've been hearing more and more about that, about this eminent domain and how it's been used as a way for Black folk to lose their homes. And then I've been someone else who was actually working in the city planning office informed me about how certain applications were just getting rubber stamped through without even like filling out the like having all the requirements set, and they were just getting slid through, no problem. And people wonder why other people think that the city is corrupt. How can you not think that? That's why people have that impression, because we can see how unfair and how unequal all of this stuff that's happening is, and no one's really providing a viable explanation.
Well, ladies, from the conversation that we've had, there's a lot to look out for. And since so many things happen while we're asleep, I guess at some point, and I'm not saying this lightly, we're going to have to take turns sleeping because everybody can't be asleep at the same time. It's just too much stuff going on.
Well, this coincides with the fact that you have the ruling of how they classify what is middle class and what's moderate income and things like that in New York City, and that's why that 150 to them seems reasonable and affordable because they're thinking of people that who have the jobs that can pay that. The problem is that people are moving in and they're making these rents extremely high. So the people who might make 80, 90,000 still can't afford it. And they're pricing out a lot of people. And it's, the people that already live here, the people that who live a little bit better than others and things like that. It's still a lot of people are being priced out and a lot of people are moving away. I have a lot of friends that are leaving the state because they can't take it. Like, they can't take their landlord telling them that their rent is going up $400 a month, things like that. And it's sad. And it's not just our area, it's happening a lot of places, but it seems to be happening more in our areas. And every time I look, there's something new being built. And I'm like, okay, I wonder how much those apartments are going to go for. And then when I find out, I'm like, that's ridiculous. And so the prices around, it's crazy.
I remember you had made that point before, Miss Atkinson, about the fact that when you have these buildings and people come in and they're paying this higher rent, it just results in everybody else having to pay more, which is another way of slowly pushing more people out. I do remember you had said that.
And that is the truth. But if you hear how they want to sell it to us, no. If we have more buildings and we have more places and it's even more rent, then that means that your rent is going to get lowered. That's how they're selling this. That's how they're pitching us. The more that we build, the lower your rent is going to go. Well, then
That's
how
not a,
come that
that's not
hasn't been the
true.
case in the last 20 years? Thank you. How come
That's
that
not true
hasn't been the
because
case in the last 20 years then? Why,
the other
why, why
landlords
is,
want to raise your rent because they want to make the same amount of money and they want to become
thank you.
just as successful as other people making paying $5,000 rents to them. So yeah, they
Hmm.
that's what they're gonna do too. Like, why can't I? And greed starts, and they're like, well, I want to be able to make this money too, and so they'll start raising their rents as well. So that's not a proven fact. So they
Right.
really,
Well,
I'm saying that
Lisa,
is really sad.
listen to them. I'm sorry, Ms. Atkinson. Listen to them tell it, and we are crazy for saying that. I'm telling you. Listen to them tell it. No, we like don't understand some magical science that automatically means that the rent should be dropping instead. But yet, when I've asked, so then how come the rents haven't dropped in the last 20 years, and you've been building for the last 20 years? Oh, well, we're just not there yet. But
I
see, if we
just
do this development now, we can start getting there.
I just saw a
Heck
report.
out of
I
here
I
with
gotta
that.
find the report. I just saw a report about like the highest price neighborhoods in the US, and I know Williamsburg is one of them. Like, where Brooklyn is right is like literally rising on these lists of the most expensive places to live.
Hmm.
And they're like, there's a couple of, of course, our Prospect Heights, Williamsburg, and Cobble Hill, like they're pricing out the Manhattan
Manhattan.
prices. And I'm
Hmm.
like, that's insane to me. But people want to move to Brooklyn and they're like, oh, I love the area. And then when they get to the area, they don't like the culture that they did like when they visited, but now that they live here, they don't
Hmm.
want the same culture. So they're okay with pushing out people who live here. They're okay with
Exactly.
certain locations closing. I don't like that
Hmm.
location. Why do they cater to that? So it's those are the
Hmm.
things that happen in the neighborhoods, and it's really sad. And so you see the people who have lived here for years leave. And I said it myself, like I literally am my apartment is too small for me because I can't get a bigger apartment, and I wanted to stay in my neighborhood, but I'm like, at this point, I will leave my neighborhood and have to leave community board just to be able to have my daughter have more space, because it's crazy. This is I literally was looking at places, and like I told before, I was shown the smallest apartment, and I'm like, I'm not leaving where I live at to be. I'm leaving. I want to leave my apartment because it's time for me and my daughter to get a bigger space. And then when I go and look at apartments, you want to show me apartments that are smaller than the one I have, but $1,000 more or $1,500 more. And I'm like, I'm not paying $3,000 for an apartment that's a shoebox. It's just not, especially, growing up in family that had homes and pre-war buildings. So me, I don't like tiny spaces, and I definitely am not going to pay an arm and a leg for one. And there are people who's willing to do that, and that's why we're being priced out, and that's why people are leaving.
And yet you missed the point that I was making earlier, but that's exactly it. And there are people who do, luckily, Ms. Atkinson's, you have a place to stay and you have a place to live, but there are people who are like families are being forced into a $3,000 one bedroom. Families of like three and four are literally being forced. I have, even in my own building, I have a studio because this, what studios in my building go for, I think 2,700 in my building. There's a family of four who are in one little studio, and that's just because they can't afford to go anywhere else. Their apartment, thank goodness, is rent stabilized. They are paying lower than the 2,600, but they literally cannot afford to go anywhere else. I don't know how four people are living in that space. I really cannot tell you, but they're making it work and they have no choice. And that's about like quality of life, like we start getting into the quality of life when you start doing that. There's a New York Times article, and Dr. Lazar, I'm going to ask you to maybe look it up because I think you have the Times subscription. So maybe you can share it with the Google group. But it's the New York Times did an article about 2 weeks ago titled "Why Black Families Are Leaving New York." And basically, it came down to quality of life. Black families cannot afford it, and they cannot afford to give their children the type of life that they'd like to give them when they're paying 50% of their income into rent alone. They're not able to maintain, and they're not able to have their children compete with other children from other ethnicities because they are paying so much money into rent. So, like I said, the first thing that goes is the computer. The first thing that goes are, tablets, etc. Our children are using cell phones and smartphones to do their homework on because they don't have a place where a parent can set up a desktop computer that can be used on a daily basis. They don't have the space and they don't have the money. I see it. We have people who come in. I have a gentleman who comes in with his daughter. They are living in a shelter. He comes in with his children every day after school and he uses our computer at the office. We allow him to use the computer at the office. That's where he does the homework with them. That's what, because he can't do it at the shelter. He can't do it at the shelter, he says. And he doesn't want his children to fall behind technologically. He sees that everything is the way of computers, and he does not want his children to fall behind and to be left behind. It's just sad and it's really heartbreaking. I don't know about you all, but I'm going to do everything I can to fight this.
Just so everybody knows, I put into the chat, I put the link to the New York Times article that Ms. Mitchell was talking about, and also another article on the same topic that's from Gothamist, so there's no paywall.
Thanks so much, Dr. Lazar. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Does anyone have anything else to say before we wrap up?
Nothing for me.
Motion to close?
Seconded.
Thank you, ladies. So I will be seeing you all tomorrow at the meeting.
Good night.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Ms. Granville. We'll see you
Thank
later.
you.
Thank you.
Good night.
What happened?
Good night.
Good night.
They go
Good
in
night.
a corridor in the car, because it had the plate, and they cross from some part of Texas, and they go across, and as soon as they go across, they kidnap them. Yes, and